In today's edition of the Red Sox Rundown, I wanted to discuss one singular topic. Do the Red Sox prefer Pete Alonso over Kyle Schwarber in MLB Free Agency? We got a very interesting report from Chris Cotillo of Mass Live and quotes from Scott Boras and others. We are going to deep dive today into which player the Red Sox should pick up. But before we do that, we've been growing like crazy here on the Red Sox Rundown. Thank you all so much to every single person that has subscribed to the channel. And I want to get to know each and every one of you. So what I want you to do is go down below in the comments right now. Shout out your city. Where are you watching from? I know that YouTube is a global platform, so I know that we are all over the world. I know Red Sox Nation is a global fan base, so let me know where you're watching. I'm residing in the Chat Sports Studios in Dallas, Texas, but you let me know. Shout out your city down below in the comments. The reason why we're talking about this today is because of this quote in particular from Scott Boras. He had his press conference at the GM meetings, and Boras being Boras had to, make some dad jokes and other jokes. But here's what he had to say about Pete Alonso. He said, I think Pete at this point in his career is about winning. No doubt. I've had that question a lot. And the question was about whether or not Pete would be interested in being a DH. He said, there's no doubt Pete's pursuers are primed to pay the power piper. Of course, because Scott Boras has to do the dad jokes and alliteration and things like that. But how I translate this quote, because again, the context of this quote is someone asking whether or not Pete Alonso would be open to designated hitting for whichever team he were to sign with. So I translate this as such. Scott Boras, I believe, is teasing that Pete Alonso is open to DHing wherever he signs. If that is the case, that makes Pete Alonso a lot more attractive to a lot more teams because not everyone needs a first baseman. And Pete Alonso's defensive metrics are not off the charts. But if he's willing to DH, that makes him a bigger target, not just for other teams, but I think for the Red Sox as well. I am starting to drink the Pete Alonso Kool-Aid. The more and more I read up on Alonso, the more highlights I watch, the more comparisons I do between him and Kyle Schwarber. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I'm really starting to drink the Pete Alonso Kool-Aid. I want Alonso on this Red Sox team, and I'm not the only one, apparently. Chris Cotillo had an article that came out discussing Pete Alonso potentially wanting to be a DH. And this quote in particular from that article is very, very telling. Here's what Cotillo had to say. He said, this week, however, word is there are some in the club's inner circle, the Red Sox inner circle, that prefer Alonso to Kyle Schwarber, the other top offensive free agent who projects to be exclusively a DH in 2026. Alonso doesn't have a qualifying offer and draft pick compensation attached to him like Kyle Schwarber does. This is a very significant report. Although it's only a sentence or two in a much longer, kind of report article from Chris Cotillo, it's still significant reporting. The fact that there are some, we don't know who, but some within the Red Sox organization, within the inner circle, I think inner circle is very telling in that quote as well, that prefer Alonso over Schwarber is significant. And also, on the end of that quote, we know the Red Sox don't like to give up draft compensation. Pete Alonso doesn't have a QO attached. Kyle Schwarber does. So the question now is Alonso or Schwarber? Which one should the Red Sox go out and sign? Because look, they're going to be a big player this offseason. All the reporting from everyone, it's not just Breslow talking, it's national and local reporters. Sean McAdam had an article that came out that talked about how the Red Sox are primed to spend over the CBT and they realize they have to be aggressive. Like Sean McAdam is reporting that as well. Everyone is showing that the Red Sox are going to be big players this offseason. So they're going to be in on both these guys. Which one should they go after more heavily? Pete Alonso or Kyle Schwarber? We're going to answer that here in a second. But first, thank you all to everyone that has clicked that subscribe button. I know that Content's been a little sporadic over the last few weeks. There just hasn't been a lot to talk about. There hasn't been a lot going on. I've also had other responsibilities here at Chat Sports as well that I've had to attend to, but we're still growing. And the winter meetings are coming soon. Things are going to start happening in rapid succession. So you don't want to miss out. We're also 13 subscribers away from our next goal of 7,200 subscribers. So if you love the Red Sox, if you love daily Red Sox coverage, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Join us today for the best and the fastest growing Red Sox YouTube channel on the planet. I'm going to stake my claim right now. If I was Craig Breslow, I would go out and sign Pete Alonso tomorrow. I think the offensive traits as a whole are better than Kyle Schwarber. I think the fact that he adds some defensive value, granted, there are concerns about his range. He's still really good when it comes to picking the baseball. He's still really good when it comes to fielding the baseball. You know, of course, there are some throwing and range issues, but he's still a quality enough defender. Please don't crucify me in the comments for saying that. You know what I'm saying here. There's more upside, I think, with Pete Alonso. And again, he's younger. The contract projection is cheaper. And he doesn't have a QO attached. For all those reasons, I would go out and sign Pete Alonso tomorrow. We got more from Scott Boras about how he's improved as a hitter. And he had arguably the best offensive season of his career in 2025. Here's what Scott Boras had to say about Alonso as a hitter. He said, he has the nature about him that is power production, punishing pitchers. They are fully aware of his skill, but I think that they most pay attention to is the core element of what he can do to provide a team that consistency of 40 home runs, power production, because they are just not finding it. There are a lot of players in the market that are somewhat there and somewhat not. Basically, what he's saying is Pete Alonso would bring any team that signs him power consistency, power production. What some people are arguing, the number one thing that the Red Sox need to go after this offseason. I still think it's a number 2 starter, but my number 2 need, it's power in the lineup. You need a 35, 40, 45 home run bat in your lineup. And Pete Alonso does that. In the past 5 seasons, 37, 40, 46, 34, 38. Your lead home run hitter was Trevor Story with 25 this year. He hits you 10 more plus home runs than your leader did this past year. Every year. You need that. He punishes pitchers. He's also a righty. He's going to punish the Green Monster. He would be a perfect fit at Fenway. And I know you're probably saying, Jack, Kyle Schwarber hit 56 home runs last year. That's true. He also struck out a hell of a lot as well. And that's what we're going to talk about in our next quote from Kiley McDaniel of ESPN. Why was Pete Alonso so successful offensively this past year? That is the context for this quote. Here's what Kiley McDaniel had to say. He said his strikeout rate was down and his power numbers were up, which both would be affected by the shortening of his swing length. The shortness of his swing was in the 74th percentile, ranked 58th this season, after being in the 51st percentile, ranked 104th last season among qualifying hitters. So he hits the ball hard. He gives you consistent power. He doesn't strike out as much as he used to. He's getting his strikeout number down. He shortened up his swing. He gives you a little bit of defensive value. This is the player the Sox need in the lineup. Again, Kyle Schwarber would be a fantastic option. He would be. But if we compare, which one would you rather have? Alonso has clearly the higher average at 272. He's just getting on base more. He's doing more. The OPS is more for Schwarber, but that's mostly the slugging percentage because he hit 56 home runs as compared to 38. But this is interesting. I believe Schwarber had, multiple more at-bats than Pete Alonso. He barely had more RBIs. And he struck out 30 more times than Pete Alonso did. That's pretty significant. And then the money. The money's also significant. Kylie McDaniel projects that Alonso is going to sign a 4-year, $110 million contract. And Kylie McDaniel's projections are the ones you want to follow. Like, he's really, really good at predicting these contract projections. That's $26.5 million AAV. As opposed to Kyle Schwarber, who he projects signs a 4-year, $128 million deal, which is $32 million AAV. My overarching take on this entire thing is if Pete Alonso is really willing to be the DH, I think it's a better idea than Schwarber. I do. People may call that sacrilege. People may think I'm crazy. People may think I don't know what I'm talking about. But if you compare the numbers, I'd side with Pete Alonso. Strikes out less while still hitting the ball really hard. He punishes pitchers, which, again, Kyle Schwarber does, but not as consistent of a rate. The 56 home runs is what everyone's going to look at. And yes, that's big. But if you look at his mean, if you go back and look at his past seasons, he's around the 30, 35, 40 range like Pete Alonso. And again, Pete Alonso's younger. He's going to be cheaper. And if you need him in a pinch to play first base, he can. Again, the defensive metrics aren't going to jump off the screen. But that's really his range. His range is the biggest issue. He can still pick. He can still field cleanly. He's still okay defensively. But if he's willing to play DH, I think you need to sign Pete Alonso to the Stand Baseball team. You let me know, though. Chat Sports is called Chat Sports for a reason. We want to chat about sports with you. Pick a player. Who would you rather have? PA for Pete Alonso, KS for Kyle Schwarber. Maybe I convinced you that Pete Alonso is the way to go. That's the way I would go, but you let me know. PA for Pete Alonso, KS for Kyle Schwarber. Pick a player down below in the comments. And that's where we're going to end today's video. Thank you all so much for taking the time to watch this video. I appreciate you all so much. It's coming. Stuff's going to start happening soon. I know I've been saying that for the last few weeks, but the GM meetings happen. We got a lot of reports. We got the winter meetings coming up in a few weeks. Things are going to happen between now and then. And then when the winter meetings happen, we really go. So make sure you subscribe. Don't miss out. When the Red Sox make a move, we're going to make a video. That is my guarantee to you. Thank you all so much for watching. Hope you all have a great rest of your day. And until next time, go Sox.